All right, so let's see what you've got here. We're sort of get some
Brought 20 pieces.
really fun sherds here.
I'll let you do it so they don't chip more than they have been.
Sherds tend to be pretty tough, actually. This is my. It looks like you've got probably the same pot here. So some of these. So you've got a mix of painted and plain sherds here. And let's see, so the plain things. This is really interesting. I think this, this is unusual, and I honestly don't know what to make of it. It looks almost like it was made on a wheel, which ancient pottery around here was not, because these sort of circular swiping marks on it. So I'm not sure what to make of this. This is some really nice brownware. So you have a piece of a brownware bowl here. You can tell this is, I like the glittery surface. You can tell you got a lot of mica in the sand where these come from. So in this black polishing on the interior, we call that smudging. So you would, when you made the bowl and fired it, you would probably fire it upside down on top of some kind of really smoky.
So it'll come up.
Yeah, and then polish it really heavily. And that it might be like the equivalent of a non-stick surface, where it seals things a little bit better. And it also it's really kind of pretty. So
well, it feels nice. Yeah.
So yeah, this is sort of what you see this all over central Arizona and New Mexico, and what we call the Mogollon area, and also down into southern Arizona.
Yeah, these were found in Queen Creek.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. So yeah, so this is. And this is sort of edging into Hohokam territory, which I honestly know less about. But you've got, so this is there's a brownware, buffware jar, and I think, again, so there are two major different ways of making pottery in the ancient Southwest. You may know this already.
Nope.
So in the Mogollon and ancestral Puebloan areas, so in the central Southwest on the Colorado Plateau, people made pottery in what we would call a coil and scrape method. So you sort of make those clay snakes and then you roll them up. In the Hohokam area, they used paddle and anvil. So you'd sort of form a vessel, and you might do that with a little bit of coiling or with wide coils, but then you take an anvil, which is some sort of roundish or sort of mushroom-shaped stone, and you take a paddle, which some sort of flat piece of wood, and you smack the pot to thin it.
Get the air out too.
Yeah. So you can produce it's really, really nice, thin, regular pottery that way. And you can sort of you can't always tell just by looking at a pot which way it was made. But when you look at something like this, for example, you can see that sort of divot there, or when you run your hands over it.
Yeah.
And that's probably from the anvil. So that's how we can sort of tell if things were paddle and anvil. So it's interesting that this stuff was from Queen Creek, because you've got this, so this sort of red on buff or red on tan is very typical of Hohokam pottery, and I don't know the types as well, but we'll get a picture of these, and we'll talk to some folks who know them better. And I think you've got this, for example, is probably from one jar, and again you can see those paddle and anvil dents from where the pottery was made. But you also have this black on white stuff, which is much less, which is not made in the Hohokam area. So this is either being brought in, or you sort of have people who do different things running up against one another. This, I think, is a kind of Salado polychrome, which it actually is made in the Hohokam area late, and it may be made primarily by immigrants from northern Arizona. So, or it's a type that's a style that's brought in by immigrants. So, and what this is, so you can tell it's not a great red on the back, but it has this red slip, and on the inside it's a white slip with a black design, and you often see for most of the history of this particular kind of pottery, you see these bold, heavy designs. So, and it's a carbon paint. So, and by that I mean it's made it's some kind of organic material. Like if you boil down walnuts, or bee weed is especially used. And so that, and again, that's a different technology than, for example, the red paint on these, which is made with some kind of mineral. So this was probably made sometime after, say, 1325 AD. So this is pretty late, late-ish. This, I think, is probably another piece of Salado polychrome, even though the back is pretty brown and burned. So the fact that this gray color in the dark here is probably a result of the sherd being burned. But again, that it's sort of that same, those bold black designs in what I think is an organic or a carbon paint.
With the stripes.
Yes, yeah,
same
exactly,
thing.
with those stripes. So now this is a little different. And I wonder, I'm not sure what to make of this. Because this looks like a mineral paint to me, that you can see that it's got just sort of a red tinge to it, and it's a really clear line. And it's sort of a buffy colored slip, so or surface. It looks almost like something that you might see in northern Mexico, but not quite. That's sort of, it's a weird area for it, and the design isn't quite right. So I'd want to talk to some folks who know more about Hohokam pottery and see if maybe this is.
These were all found at the same site, though, same bit of abandoned land.
So yes, I wonder if this is, if they meant to. So you use the same, often you use the same mineral to produce black paint and red paint, right? Because if you, if iron oxidizes, it's red, and if it doesn't oxidize, it's black. So sometimes that means that we have sherds of a type that's supposed to be black on white or is supposed to be red on white that were sort of made a little strangely. And so we get, it's black when it should be red, or it's red when it should be black. But yeah, I'd want to talk to somebody about this, because it's, this one's interesting. But so it looks like you've got a
Good assortment.
A good assortment, a neat site sometime, toward the late end of the ancient Southwest. So
1300s?
1300s.
Oh, that is nice. Thank you.
Any questions?
No, my son picked them up. He saw the junk pile or whatever when he was driving by, so he stopped to investigate. And of course, the place is gone now. It's turned into a sand and gravel site. So all the pottery that was left there, this has been rescued apparently, rather than left in situ.
Yeah. Oh yes, that happens a fair amount.
So, well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for bringing it in.
Okay. Bye.
That was going to be my first question. So you any idea about where it came from, or?
I'm pretty sure most of it's in Arizona. Some probably out by Witch Wells. I know he did a lot out there.
Okay.
Possibly in the valley. Maybe even up by Vermilion Cliffs.
Okay.
He was very secretive about where he would go.
Yeah. That's not unusual. All right, so let's see what we can say about the pottery. Now, I think to start with this, I'm a fan of corrugated pottery. So this looks like so this beautiful little corrugated jar. Now, corrugated pottery is made all over the Southwest, but this is what we would call a plain or a clapboard corrugated because nothing's been done to the coils. It's not pinched or indented or anything. I think, without breaking it to look at the temp or anything, this is a brownware, so that does limit where it would have been made because we, on much of the Colorado Plateau, they have what are really nicer clays, these kaolitic gray clays, which fire to a light gray color, and they're really nice, they're really hard. South of the Mogollon Rim, so in the highlands, and also coming up to onto the edge of the Colorado Plateau in certain areas. They're different kind of clays. They're a little bit softer. They fire brown.
Okay.
So it's probably from, it could easily be from this area, and, you know, even as far over as Witch Wells or, you know, a little bit north of here, or down all over the Mogollon Highlands. We see this kind of corrugated ware, all over south of the Mogollon Highlands. So now there are a few things in this jar.
I think those are just extras that they just stored. I don't think they...
Well, you know, it's interesting. It's if they were found in the jar, that's not necessarily unexpected.
Okay.
So if you have some kind of cache, or if you have put a whole vessel somewhere, there's probably a reason for that, and so it could easily have other important objects in it. Like for example, this is a little piece of turquoise, which has been ground. I think it's been ground on one surface, and has certainly been handled. But other than that, it's not drilled or anything. But that's something that people could absolutely use as an offering. Turquoise was and is enormously important in the Southwest. And you also see, so there are two, one complete tiny little arrowhead, this nice buff-colored shirt, and a larger chalcedony point. It's broken. And yeah, you also see arrowheads being placed in important places. So they
could have come with that pot.
Yeah,
then.
so they could absolutely have come in the pot.
I didn't even think of that. I thought of just little pieces he put in there.
No, well, in particular, and yeah, of course it may have been, but particularly miniature vessels. So, you know, this is a pot this size. You wouldn't necessarily, you know, you can't store very much in it. You can't really cook with it.
Right.
So there's some debate about what miniature vessels are, and, you know, some people have argued that they're toys. Some people have argued that children are making them. This is pretty nice. If it was made by a child, it was not somebody's first effort.
See, when you talk about miniature, I think of something like that as being miniature. I don't think of that as miniature.
Which is fair, but it's definitely, I would call it miniature because it's really, it's small enough that it's not really clear what you would use it for.
And you can't cook with it like you said or anything. Yeah. What about grain storage or something like that, or is it too small even for that?
I would say it's too small for that.
Okay.
You know, we have seed jars, which also tend to be a little bit bigger than that. But if you're going to store seeds specifically, particularly to plant later, there are these nice vessel forms that have, if you can imagine sort of a squashed sphere with a little opening at the top.
Yeah. Okay.
So those are our pretty clearly seed storage jars, and we know people use bigger jars like this for storage, but Really something this small. And we do find them in really important contexts. So for example, I study great kivas, and all of the ones that I have looked at have small vessels in them,
Okay.
even little caches in the floor or something. So it may be specifically made for ritual purposes. And there's one more. This is a little piece of a shell. So that's some kind of shell ornament that's maybe a bird. I think it's broken. And it's probably made out of some kind of marine shell. Well, it's certainly made out of some kind of marine shell. And you see these, you see worked shell all over the Southwest, but can be quite rare. That it's a commodity that people brought up. Probably ultimately came from the Gulf of California.
Okay, but I know some sites I've been to, you can find actual, they look like little clams, but I don't know what they really are, that look petrified almost.
Oh yeah, so you see, and they're probably, they're probably coming up from the Gulf of California.
So they actually brought those up, then they weren't part of, when there was more water up here, they weren't natural.
No, and there are, as you probably know, there are freshwater bivalves in the upper Little Colorado, but they're really, freshwater mussels have really thin, sort of mother of pearl looking shells.
These are usually thicker.
Yeah, so anytime you see good thick white shell, and shell does erode through time, so that sort of white chalky fossilized look, and it can also be altered by burning too. But when we find archaeological shell, that fossilized look, because it's been sitting in the ground for
long time.
So, but no, this is neat. And then the other pots. So this is, I think, I really ought to know. I think this is an early White Mountain redware, which would be Puerco black on red, which means that it is actually. I'm going to cheat and get a book. Yes, I am reasonably happy typing this. So the fact that it's, the ware, the general class of pottery, the fact that it's this nice red slip on both sides, the layout with these thin lines, the sort of opposition on both sides of the bowl. So this is one of the older, in fact, the oldest type in this ware, which is a little bit more specific. But say the oldest black on red pottery that you would find in this area.
Okay. Is that why it's sort of crude looking compared to a lot of the stuff that you see? Because it is older before they...
a lot of times you do see changes through time. You also see differences in skill among potters too.
Yeah.
So, but it is a little compared to. So there, in the museum in the next room, there would be pots in this same ware that are, 2, 3, or more 100 years later, which and the type has really developed into these sort of complex thing with a slightly different kind of, slightly different color of slip, using white paint as well as black paint, and much more complex. But so this probably dates. So it's probably from. This general region, and that could be fairly big, but say sort of the southern Colorado plateau, and probably dates to sometime in the 1000s.
Oh, okay, so it's that old.
Yeah, so really pretty old. And then this, I think, is, you can just barely see that it's a black on white.
I'm thinking that I remember he told me that one may have been from the Vermilion Cliffs area. But if it is, that's the only one he mentioned to me on where he might have found it.
Okay, that is good to know. I think, because I wish we had better light, but I think that this, so you can see where this white slip, which is not great, but it has a white slip which is wearing off of it. And I think at some point it had black paint, which is now just pretty much gone.
Do you just usually not find plain whiteware?
You don't. Typically, they would either you don't slip a pot at all, so it's just the gray color or the brown color. And maybe, particularly with brown wares, they might polish it quite well. So you get an effect sort of like it has a slip. But if in the Southwest something has a white slip on it, it was probably painted.
Okay.
So my gut feeling is it's a very brown, paste. Though that might just be iron in the clay. I know folks who could type this for you just based on the form and the paste, but I cannot. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting little jar, and it would be. We'll get good pictures of all of this, and
Okay.
talk to some other folks who have who really know the area well. But yeah, it's an interesting little vessel. Now, the rest of this, so this is pretty much all ground stone, and it's a really interesting selection of stuff. So you've got, this is what we would call a palette. So it's really, really nicely finished, ground on all sides with it. Now, whether it's actually being used as what you would think of as a palette
Right.
to mix pigment or something, not entirely certain. I don't see any traces on here. To the best of my knowledge, this is not something that's common up here. You see palettes in the Hohokam area, and you see them in the Members area in
Okay.
southwest New Mexico. But
And that may be one he did find down in the valley
Mhm.
in that area.
and a couple of these things too look very much like what are called sensors. We assumed that they were used for burning incense,
Okay.
but at the same time, this is very much the same form and was clearly being used to grind red pigment.
Yeah, that's a beautiful piece.
So yes, this is very, very interesting. It's clearly still covered in hematite, and yeah, it's
So are you.
yes, and now I am too. That's how we can tell things are pigment. So you've also got sort of this miniature. This may be.
I don't know if that was a natural formation or not. I found some like it, but I think we're just natural
I
rock.
wonder, yes, if this is actually a concretion,
Right.
or even if, and you know, people pick those up all the time, so you
Mhm.
find them on archaeological sites, and I don't necessarily see any grinding or anything in
Okay.
here, so this may just be natural.
Okay.
This is this has had an interesting life. So so the most obvious piece of it is this groove here, and we would probably call it a shaft straightener because of that. You know, that you're for arrow shaft or some other purpose, you're using that groove to grind things straight. But it also has these two other notches there, which might have been used to work something else, something smaller, wood or bone. Some folks who are really good at groundstone would be able to tell you which it was. And also, both sides of it, it's been used as a handstone, like a grinding stone. So it has this grinding on this side and a little bit on this side. So this is, you think of sort of the lifetime of an object and people reusing it over and over again. So this is.
If you had to carry it around, you'd want something that's a
Yes,
multi-tool.
yes, absolutely. You want to use what you already have on hand. This looks like it's also been used in sort of again, less intensive use, but also used as a shaft straightener. And this less of an interesting life because it hasn't been reused in all those different ways. This is a beautiful little axe. This wonderful heavy material that they're made out of. I suspect it's been resharpened. There are, I'm going to mess this up. There are what we call full groove axes and 3/4 groove axes. So the fact that it isn't ground on this side, so this would be a 3/4 groove axe. And 3/4 groove axes, if I recall correctly, you see primarily in the Mogollon Highlands and the southern Southwest, as opposed to the full axes, which are more characteristic of the Colorado Plateau.
Okay.
So this is probably not from the far north of the Southwest. And yeah, it's a really, really neat little axe. A little battering on that side may have been. This is definitely stone. And it may have been, the fact that it's grooved, it may have been used as some kind of pendant,
really?
hung somehow. That groove there. It's possible that it's meant to represent a miniature axe. It's kind of the same form. But I'm a little skeptical of that because it's, if they could have done a better job of flattening it out and making it a little bit more axe-like and less like a plumb bob, which is what I sort of see when I look at
Not
this.
anything like an atlatl weight or anything like that, or is it too big for that?
No, well, so if you were gonna, basically you'd want your atlatl weight to be flatter, or something that was easy to put on. So if you imagine,
So it actually fit on the atlatl itself?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. So if you imagine this very, very flat, object, and you have sort of a handle at one end, and if you're going to put a weight on it, you want it to be something that's.
I didn't know if it was something that hung down and weighed it that way, or like a fishing bob almost.
No, that'd be
It's probably
interesting.
get
A
in
little
the
bit
way,
more of a
but-
sling
Yeah.
if you're going to do it that way. But yeah, you want it. 'Cause you're controlling the atlatl as that sort of flexible extension of your arm. So, but yeah, it does it. And I don't, they've intentionally chosen a light stone. So this sort of very, very vesicular volcanic stuff. So if it was meant to be a weight, it wasn't meant to be a particularly heavy one. But yeah, the groove all the way around does suggest that it might have been suspended from something.
Too lightweight to use as a grinding stone, a miniature grinding stone?
No, and actually they often make grinding stones out of light to vesicular stuff. One thing, this material might be fairly easy to work for one thing. Although if it's soft, has some real disadvantages as a grinding stone, right? Because it'll wear out faster and you'll get more grit in whatever you're grinding. So that might have been it. It's pretty regularly shaped, other than the sort of damage. This may be damage to the rock, or it might be damage to the object. It's difficult to tell, but it's a pretty regularly shaped artifact.
Okay.
So that makes me think that somebody wasn't They may have been using it for grinding, but it doesn't. They weren't favoring a surface if they were.
Okay.
That hasn't flattened out or anything. But yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to
Neat
show you
stuff.
pieces that I found, and I know where they came from.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes, you never find them when you're looking. You
No.
find them when you stop for lunch. Oh my.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Folsom Point.
Yes, it is.
That's
That was 4
fantastic.
miles, 4 miles west of Concho,
Okay.
in a valley that had a natural spring, so it was always water in there.
Okay. Great. No, this I'm really thrilled to see this, and I know we'll have a lot of people too who will be glad to have this to add to
Yeah.
their databases. No, that's fantastic.
Isn't that
So yeah,
beautiful?
it's this little bitty, but I think it may have been resharpened to get down to
Mhm,
this
to be
length.
that small.
Yeah, but no, that wonderful flute that covers practically the whole point. Oh, that's such a beautiful little point.
That was
yeah.
another surprise one, yeah, just walking across the valley and out there in the middle, real close to where the stream ran, and there's nothing else right out in the middle but that one
Oh,
piece.
boy.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thanks
Okay.
very much for bringing
Here's
this
the other
in.
really good one.
Oh, wow.
And that was 20 miles east of Witch Wells, so I believe it was west of Witch Wells, somewhere out there.
So this is a shell ornament. Yeah, you can
So
tell
it
that
is
it's-
shell?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people look at it, nobody could tell me if they knew whether it was stone or bone or,
Well, and I think that the lines that you can see in it
Mm-hmm.
there, that's I think a good indicator of it being shell
Okay.
because they put on yearly rings.
uh-huh.
Um, so, oh, that's super neat. And it's interesting that, so it has this sort of nice triangular shape and ground around the top. And it puts this sucker in perspective, right?
Yeah,
Because
it
it's really
does.
kind of the same form. So, yeah, it's
But one
probably...
thing you'll notice on this is each one of these grooves is a different size.
Ooh,
As far as the
Those
sides
guys,
go, one's
yeah.
kind of flat, one's real narrow,
narrow.
and one's a little,
Oh, yeah, and that
between.
one's, yeah. That one's sort of wide and
so
deep.
I
This
have my
one's
theory on
narrow.
what it was, but it's just theory.
That is interesting. Yeah, and is this side supposed to be the front or something? And these matching designs on, yeah, there's fair amount of effort was put into this. And yeah, I assume it was wrapped and suspended from that. Yes, please tell us your theory.
I think it was a hunter's fetish. One side was used to bless the atlatl itself. One side was used to bless the shaft of the arrow, and one side was used to bless the string itself. That's the three sizes. And there was a long story on this one on how I got it. It was a gift from, they had their laugh at me 2 or 3 times, and I hung in there and they gifted me with that, because I should not have found that. Still gives me chills thinking about it. It was quite a story on it, so.
Huh, well, you want to tell us the story?
Yeah, I can. It was 2 different days I was out there, and it's a long drive out there. I don't know if you've ever been to Witch Wells. It's like long way. And I went out one day, and I put my pack down just to look along the edges of the cliff, and I lost my pack. Couldn't find it. 2 hours I looked. It was them laughing at me and having fun at my
Yeah.
expense, which they do, you know.
Yeah.
You do digs, you know. So then they had enough fun, so they led me back to my pack, and I took it and left and went home. You know, I said, okay, I've had enough of this. So I went back the next time, a month or 2 later, and I was down in the valley, and I was trying to climb up the cliff just to get back on the top so I get back to my truck. Kept going up, slide down, go up, slide down, go up, slide down. I was getting exhausted. I just could not get that last 10 feet up the cliff. And I said, okay, I give up. I'm going home. I'm going to have to go the long way around. So I went all the way back down, started walking along the valley, along the cattle trail, and I was just laying right there. It was like, okay, we've laughed at you enough, here's a gift. Because there was nothing else around it, you know, it was just one of those things, just like
Yep.
the Folsom Point. There was nothing else right there.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're led to things, I
Yes.
really do believe that. Okay.
Well, this is fantastic. Are there any specific questions I can
No,
can
you've
answer?
answered really pretty much everything, thank you, yeah.
Well, thank you very, very much for bringing this stuff
Okay,
in.
yeah, I don't know who
This is-
here is part of CASA Malapai. Your museum here, is it just stuff that you found in this area? For the most part. Okay, yeah, because I wouldn't mind donating a couple of these pieces, especially some of this, because it's just in a box, you know, and I'm afraid I'm going to break it. But if it would go to some museum where I know it's going to be seen and not just stuck in a basement somewhere, that's the thing. So if you know anybody, you know, you let Mia know and she can talk to me about it, okay? All right. Okay, well, good, yeah, go ahead and get your...
All right. So let's have a look at this. This is really neat. So it's sort of in the general class. It's groundstone in sort of the general class of what we'd call netherstones.
Okay.
So it's something that people are grinding on. And I wonder, I look at this and I wonder if it must have been wedged somehow, because otherwise, you know, it's going
Right.
to tip over. The fact that it's this, we were talking about this earlier, it's so small, it might actually be kind of nice and portable.
That's what I was thinking, that it might have been something they could take with them.
Yeah, and typically later in time, when people are really heavily invested in farming, we typically see the larger metates. Where,
Right.
you know, you really are spending a lot of your time grinding. It's, you know, it's in one place. So this may be much earlier, the early agricultural or archaic, when people are doing. They're less focused on farming. They're spending more time collecting things in the landscape. And it's almost, I wonder, like it's almost a mortar. So you early on you see, you're more likely to see one-handed metates or grinding stones,
Okay.
so smaller things. But this is sort of so small and so deep. I wonder if it's a little bit more like a mortar, and if somebody was using it with something more like a pestle and less
That's
like
what I thought,
like a mono.
And so what would you think, just for small batches or for paint or?
I as a guess, I would say small batches of food rather than paint.
Mhm.
But that's really just a guess, and
Sure.
based on the fact that I can't see any pigment on it, and that it is pretty deep.
Right.
But yeah, so it's a
So it could have been kind of like nomadic in a way. Because
Yeah,
they would pick
or
up
at
and
least-
go and pick up and go.
yeah. I don't, you know, nobody wants to schlep groundstone that far, you know, because this is still pretty hefty.
It's heavy, yes.
But, you know, yeah, you'd have more luck taking this, say, from one base camp to another, or if there was, you know, if you had it at a base camp and you wanted to take it out to a patch of something,
Okay.
you could move this around. So much more so than the big later objects.
Okay.
But yeah, no, this is really cool.
And I don't know if you saw the large metate that's over there, the really big, huge one.
I don't think I have, but so is that.
Yeah, myself and Andy, my boyfriend, we donated that, a year ago or so, I think. 2 years ago. And, because he had to carry it. Him and Keith.
Yeah.
And it's the really huge big one, so you should probably.
All right. I've already got photos of it, so
Okay.
let's go ahead and pause the filming. And if you want to go in and take a look at this giant.
Yeah, let me
and
see
my
this.
big one that I've lugged
You
around
want
for.
me to put that back in your car?
Yeah, I'll put it back in the car, and then I'll wait till things are settled down over there, and then I'll bring it back and we'll put it.
Well, this is out in my backyard,
All right.
and I think that I found this piece, which is not unusual.
All right.
Because I find little pieces of pottery out there.
Yeah, so this
Fairly
is,
often.
yes, nice little sherd.
And then I found this piece. We were taking fence out, and we were digging around the fence post to try and get it out. That came out of the ground.
Now this, I think, did you ever have some kind of adobe structure back there?
Not, well, we've been at that place, but there may have been some there at one time.
Because it looks, you know, I mean, it would just be, it sort of, it looks to me almost like a piece of building material with some plaster on it.
Okay.
You know, that it's that thick and chunky.
So there's
Oh yeah,
more of the same.
more of the same.
Yeah.
But I can see how, like, it does curve.
Mhm.
Curiouser and curiouser. Huh. Well, maybe some kind of big giant industrial ceramic in that case, like a giant flower pot or something.
A roof tile.
Could be, because it does have a curve to it on this sort of surviving surface, but it's
And in the same area, these they're all similar, all kind of came out of the same area. So we got some wings and some.
all right. So this, so kind of just a nicer version of the same thing, huh? Yeah, interesting.
This was not very deep in the ground, just maybe 3 or 4 inches under the surface when we were digging out. And so then I did some more digging. I found some pretty interesting patterns that looked very similar.
Okay, so this is starting to. Now, so I think. Oh, now we're starting to make sense. Some sort of shoulder. Ooh. All right, so this is somehow part of the same beast as this. Oh, I wonder, it's almost like it's a piece of building material or earth or something that's burned or fired with something in it. It left an impression. But yeah, so I think this is going to be all historic or modern stuff. And so you've got, I think what you've got, I'm trying to decide if there's more than one vessel here. So there's this neat sort of green back and forth pattern on that, and something going on the inside. This is like, so part of a shoulder here with some kind of base. So I'm not sure if you're looking at something sort of, yeah, can we make these refit?
We got some more pieces here too. So.
But so yeah, something a little bit like a punch bowl or some kind of vase with the sides that come out. This is interesting. I wonder if the black interior is because it's burned, or what was going on with this? So yeah, some interesting colors on the outside of this. This yellow going on, and this is another. You give me pots, and I try and put them together. It's what I do. So yeah,
this was underneath it.
Stratigraphy. It is instructions for planting some kind of vine. So yes, I think we have discovered a historic. Actually, no. I think given this, I think it is probably less than 50 years old. So I think we in fact have a modern flower pot. Possibly 2 modern flower pots, although this is.
So I had a lot of fun digging it out.
Yeah, no, it's so.
What was what and why?
Yeah.
The colors really threw me.
Yeah, no,
Yellow,
this sort of is
Where
this.
was it?
In my backyard.
Oh, good. Great.
and digging out a fence post.
Yeah.
And all of it was within, maybe 10 inches of the surface.
Yes.
So, yeah, so I think we got a Mexican flower pot.
Yes. The mystery of, we can construct a story about this. This is it was a grapevine. So this is the sad history of someone's brief attempt at a winery.
So there's a few more smaller pieces, but that's basically it.
Yeah,
What
no,
that,
this
real
is,
thick?
this is
that's
interesting. I'm
pretty-
still trying to figure out what this, like the big slabby business. This is so. I've got this flower pot sorted out in my head. I'm still trying to figure out this one. Just either it has lasted just very badly and is coming apart. So, neat stuff.
Yeah, so
So this is incredible. This is a beautiful ladle, and this is it can be ladles sort of have their own style. We talk about pottery types based on often what we see on jars and bowls, and ladles can be really creative and really strange. But I believe this is what we would call Cibola whiteware. So it's the kind of black on white pottery that's made in this area. And I think it's probably quite late that this is really sort of Pinedale-like, which is a style that comes in the late 1200s into the 1300s. So it's sort of the latest versions of this pottery that are made. And that's we could tell that based on the use of these long lateral lines and the use of the solid triangles like this. But that's a really, really neat object. So where is this from?
My dad gave it to me. My Aunt Lona, who was an avid hunter of artifacts, gave it to him. So that's all I know.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that it was found around here because she really wasn't someone that would go far in a distance to search. But that was from around here.
No,
So-
it makes sense as something from around here. That's a really neat.
Yeah. Yeah, I have one more ball here. And I don't know, a friend of mine that said that whenever they bury the potter, that they break it in the different directions, the 4 directions. Is that true, or?
I have not heard it. Let's see. So this is a lovely Cibola whiteware. So again, that local black on white pottery type. And you see, it's very typical that they make these little pitchers or jars. And often it's sort of, this one isn't quite an animal effigy handle, but the fact that it has sort of little ears here.
The bottom of it is interesting too. It's real similar to the dipper, I thought.
Yes, it's that same very late style. So this is probably, sometime between 1275 and the early 1300s that they're making these sort of the very latest Cibola whiteware jars. That's really pretty. That's very nice. And they're sort of they're changing the way, at that point in time, they're changing the way they make the paint, so it becomes a little bit thicker, a little bit more like what we would call a glaze. So it's very, very, very neat. And you're absolutely right that they have sort of that same stylistic grammar. You know?
Yeah, the points and the triangles
yeah.
and stuff. I thought it was probably,
Yeah, no,
that's
absolutely.
it.
Well, so the last couple of things here. So this is interesting because it's sort of midway between what we would call an axe and what we would call a maul. But so yeah, you have this 3/4 groove, which is typical of sort of the southern part of the Southwest, so the Mogollon Highlands and into this area and the Hohokam area. And it's sort of shaped to a point on this side, which is why I say it's kind of axe-like. But mostly with axes, we see them being in sort of nicer, finer materials. So it's really, and it's definitely been battered on this side. So it's, if you would take a stick and split it in order to put this onto a handle, and then use it as sort of a hammer. It's just bang away. So neat stuff. And this, I do not think is from around here.
Yeah, I don't even know where I got that, to tell you the truth. My ex-husband was an avid, he was always doing things, and that just turned up. So I don't have a clue either.
Well, and there are historically, and also in sort of the late pre-contact, you see these polished black vessels in northern Chihuahua, and then historically and modern times they get made in the Rio Grande. But so this could be, it could be modern. It's also, it's not a vessel shape. It's the doorknob vessel shape is not not all that standard. So yeah, it could be modern, and sort of, and maybe from New Mexico or Mexico, or it's possible that it could be prehistoric and from somewhere that I'm not as familiar with. But yeah, this is probably not from Springerville.
All right, good. Like I say, I don't know where it's from. It usually won't set up, yeah. It's always down better.
Yes, yeah, that round bottom, they really want to be set on pot rings or something. Well, can I answer any other questions?
I can't remember what you told me, this design or this, typically from this area, you said.
So the type is Pinedale black on white, and we also talk about Pinedale style, which is named after the town of Pinedale. It's the general kind of pottery made using that technology is Cibola whiteware. So.
And when you say Cibola, is that a tribe of Native Americans, or is
no,
that
it's so what we have a fairly strict and not necessarily logical system for naming pottery in the Southwest, where basically we name wares and types after places. So in this case, the Cibola refers to the Zuni area, and that's kind of based on this all the way back to the assumption that Zuni Pueblo was the 7 cities of Cibola. So this, but we use it as a place name because this kind of pottery is found and made in the Zuni area and south of there, and also in this part of east central Arizona. So when we talk about wares, we're talking about pottery that's made with the same kind of technology, so it has the same kind of paint and the same kind of clay, and that's named after a place. And then we'll have within that ware, if you treat that as a box, there are types, and those are also named after places. So it's all very geographical. So we say that, all right, so it's Cibola whiteware, and it's Pinedale black on white because we first defined this pottery type in the Pinedale area. Even if it's not primarily made in the Pinedale area. But yeah, that's how we come up with the names.
Great, great.
So yeah, those are really neat vessels.
If you could state your name and spell it out for the camera, and then we'll just go ahead and get started.
I'm Sam Udall, and if you're from Arizona, you can spell Udall.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, why don't you tell us anything you can about where you found these or where these came from?
Hell no, I'm not going to tell you where I found them.
Right, that's all right too.
I actually, I dug that damn thing up on the right of way of the school bus road.
All right. So,
What do you know about what them guys are digging out there now?
me, nothing. Where are we talking about?
On school bus road and there at 26 Bar.
It's the Amity, is it the Amity side? The Amity side.
Is that what they call it, the Amity side?
Yeah, it got dug by mistake, and so they're cleaning up the mistake.
Well, and they're gonna quit when they get finished there?
I believe so.
Well, I stopped them once. I called the mayor.
Thank you very much.
Good.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
that was years ago, and got them stopped. And when I was a kid, there was a really nice lady lived there with her brother. And they worked for 26 Bar. And they plowed that field, and I went over with this lady, and we picked up 27 arrowheads by noon.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
And that's kind of where this came from. And I don't know where in the hell that came from. Where did it come from?
All right.
Anyway,
Okay.
you see, you drink coffee out of
So yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
what's
nice
unique
little-
about that is that handle.
Yeah,
Unique.
no, this nice little strap handle. So I can't tell you much about the jars. So people make pottery that isn't painted beginning really pretty early, say 80, 200. And they keep making pottery that isn't painted all the way till today. So it doesn't necessarily tell us as much about dating as painted pottery does.
Oh, okay, really?
But this is probably, we know the jars around here are made using what we would call a coil and scrape method. So you may have done this in grade school, actually. You make those sort of pottery, those
Make
clay
your coil,
snakes
roll it up
and
and
coil it up
smooth it
and
out.
scrape it out. So yeah.
That redhead back there can do that.
Yeah. So yeah, and this looks like it's been burned a little bit. Maybe just in firing, but this could have been in a fire. Let's see. Got some paint dribbled down the side. There.
Is
So
there
yeah,
a little paint there?
yeah, it looks like it may be some kind of paint or deposit or something. It's not really a painted pot, but it's got something dribbling down the side.
What I thought was unique about it was that funny little handle to put your finger in.
Yeah, and you see these nice little, and it might have been, I mean, they would have been drinking coffee, but it might have been somebody's personal jar, that you've got
What a
this.
coffee cup.
Yeah, well, it's a nice little sort of one-person serving size, right? I've done a lot of work in southwestern New Mexico and sort of the Mimbres area.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, and we see,
Awful pretty pottery there.
yes, very, very pretty.
Are they the ones that break it though?
Yeah, sometimes they'll,
And they bury
yeah, they'll kill a pot by
Oh, good. Yeah,
by
kill
stamping
it,
a hole
right.
in it. And we see, you see jars like about this size in rooms and used all over. But I've also seen a bunch of them that were recovered from burials with children. So it's possible too that these small vessels maybe they're in some way have to do with kids. So and yeah, then you got the other one here, and this is Now, this is sort of interesting that you've got, oh, maybe that was, so you've got the remains of another handle here, and this is actually,
No, that's just a spout, isn't it?
well, but it's broken, so you don't usually see them,
I don't see where if it was a handle or
well,
a spout.
yeah, and that's, oh, that's what uh, we were just talking about how our audio equipment's getting a little old, so, you know, get some new stuff after this. It's maybe, so you can feel how that's a little bit rough there. It's just possible that something was attached. But it could also have been something that came around a little bit and wasn't attached, which would still be weird.
So you don't think it's a spout?
I don't think it's a spout. You don't usually see them in this part of the world. And it's
I
definitely,
guess you're right.
see how,
But I just was positive it was a spout.
I can see why you think that because it looks like one, but you can see it's definitely broken here. So there's a part of it that's missing. So yeah, I think it was either, sometimes you get handles that don't quite attach, or even that it's was just attached here and not very well and it's broken. But yeah, so another one of those nice plainware vessels, also kind of burned. This one now, this is interesting because this could just be from firing, but this really does look like it's sooted to some degree. So that's,
I see, so. How flat is it on the
Yeah.
bottom?
it's pretty flat. Yeah, we're getting nicer than some of the ones we've seen today. They often don't necessarily want to stand up. So let's see, any specific questions about these?
No, I just, you broke my heart. I was
Oh,
sure
it's-
that was a spout.
I'm sorry to disappoint
You
you.
could see that, couldn't you? I think-
All right, well, thanks for coming out and showing us.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you very
Yes,
much.
I just,
Is that the same time period as?
that's a spout, that's not. Okay.
If I could get a couple of close-up photos of
Yeah,
those.
I don't mind. Yeah, let's